The HOA is doing what? Good evening, everybody. How are you doing tonight? It's been a long day for me. So today we have a story that I think is fascinating because I think it's what the future will look like, especially with HOAs and city partnership. This is a particular story about an HOA that that decided they were going to do something without the city's approval, and the city didn't find that very fascinating. The story originates out of Austin, Texas, a city that has seen, a huge population growth in the past decade, and they're moving in. I mean, if you want to see something new, something trendy, Austin is definitely a place to be. And so, for those of you who don't know me, my name is John Schenk, and I am the founder and managing broker of Deerwood Realty in St. Louis, Missouri. We are a boutique brokerage, and we specialize mainly in residential and light commercial sales. Our podcast is Deerwood Realty and Friends, and we are on YouTube at deerwoodrealtystl.com. If you like stories about HOAs, neighbors, bad real estate deals, bad real estating, this is the channel for you. Go ahead and click the subscribe button and come along with me for the ride. It's going to be a lot of fun. So let's just get into the story, I guess, and then we'll kind of go through it together and see what you think about it. So let me hit the button. I always do that. I got to get better at that. So here we go. It says HOA promises to remove surveillance cameras installed without Lakeway's permission. So there's an HOA, and then there's the city of Lakeway. And there were 8 cameras installed in Lakeway that the city didn't know about. It was done by the HOA. And it's a very interesting story because I'll just read a quote. The HOA said that gosh, it's so far down. They said that they thought that they were just being a good partner with the city. We didn't think that we were out there trying to be a big brother. We didn't realize it wasn't vetted by the city at any level, so it's not a problem to take it down. So they're taking the cameras down. And if you take them at face value, they really didn't know that the cameras were a violation. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that the cameras were installed on would be right of way, so like next to a city street. But this particular company contracts with HOAs and public agencies all over the country, and the HOAs install the cameras on the private property. So that's where it kind of went south for everybody. The mayor said in an interview, he said, "We in the city of Lakeway and as U.S. citizens do not have a custom of around-the-clock surveillance. Having such a system, if it's going to be installed, ought to be a matter of public discussion." And I agree with that. And as we see more and more stoplight cameras, traffic cameras being installed at every intersection, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of public discussion about it or public debate about it. It seems like these municipalities just go and put these cameras up and they say not for revenue purposes, but for safety purposes. But it turns out that there is quite a bit of revenue gain when the cameras go up. So in this particular case, the cameras were put up without the knowledge of the city, but the city's police captain was aware of it because what everybody's saying is that he represented the that they were behind it, and he signed an agreement with the company. So what we have an HOA that has agreed to put 8 cameras out in their area. They put them in the wrong place. The city finds out about it. The city says, we don't think this is right. The HOA comes back with, well, we thought we were doing the right thing because the city police agreed to it, or they believe they were behind it. And then the city says, we don't know anything about it. The police chief resigns, and then the HOA says they'll take the cameras down. So that's the story. Now, I have thoughts, and I kind of wanted to go over them with you. So the city roads and HOA approved the lease. So it's apparently without the city knowing. And so how often does this sort of thing happen, where an HOA will just put up cameras on their own? And then, the city has jurisdiction, I suppose, over any HOA. But are you aware that HOAs have the ability to lease cameras in 2021? I knew of no places. I saw one article maybe 2 weeks ago about a community that had installed cameras in their own space. It was like a little suburb, I think, of Baltimore. And there was, people were upset about that outside of the community. And the people inside the community seemed to think that it deterred crime. So I just thought that was interesting. I didn't know about it. I had no idea that HOAs could have their own security cameras. The mayor's response: we live in the city of Lakeway, and as U.S. citizens do not have a custom of around-the-clock surveillance. And having such a system, if it's going to be installed, ought to be a matter of public discussion. As I agree with that, I wonder if you think it's true that we are not in a system where we have around-the-clock surveillance at this point in 2021. Are we being surveilled all the time and we just don't know it? And then it's a question of definition of surveillance. Then this particular company, it works with HOAs around the country and usually puts them on private property, not city property. And then, did you know that your HOA could get a camera system, and do you care? So I don't know what I would think about something like this. Like if our HOA came up and said, hey, let's get a bunch of cameras. And on one hand, we've seen stories over and over again about crimes, but, those people were prosecuted anyway. So it says it's $2,500 per camera per year, and there were 8 cameras in this HOA being used. So that's $20,000 a year, and no one seemed to know about it. Well, I would think that the HOA would have to put forth a budget or something for its community members to see every year. And I was curious if you thought that $20,000 a year for cameras would be a good use of the HOA funds. I mean, you have a police department, you have the city. What are these people doing for your protection? And this is anywhere. I don't care if you live in a terrible part of town or if you live in the best part of town. Why is it that the HOAs need to start getting involved with this camera leasing and stuff like that? It's kind of interesting. The COO of the HOA said the system was presented to the HOA with the endorsement of the police department. The police chief has resigned, and they will remove the cameras. So it's a good thing that someone noticed the cameras, that they are going to take them out, down without any sort of argument. But it's a weird thing that the HOA was allowed to do it in the first place. And according to this article, the company that puts up the cameras works with HOAs around the country. And so then there's a quote. It says, the system is a tool, and any tool given to law enforcement officers need to make sure they are properly trained. We find ourselves with a surveillance system and no policies, procedures, or protection. And I found that interesting. So the argument is not that the city is against surveillance systems. It's that they're arguing that they're against the police not knowing how to effectively use them, and they haven't been trained. That's a very interesting argument. I don't know if I believe it. it's certainly a way to say, hey, we don't want the cameras, and give it a justification for it. But they could have just said, we don't want these cameras in our community. Or if we do have cameras, we want to be in control of them. I don't know how many of you think that just because the government has control of the cameras, that makes it better. I don't know. It's just a question I have. And so I find this story to be odd because the city is rejecting the use of the cameras due to the training and not to the idea of the cameras in general. So I hope you can see where I think that's interesting. And would it make a difference to you if the city put in cameras or the HOA put in the cameras? Or if the police department put in the cameras? I mean, the cameras are still going up. And so some questions I had were, would you want your HOA to lease security cameras? So if you were at an HOA meeting and a company said, hey, we're working with the police department, and with good news, if you pay $2,500 a year, you can get a camera put on your main street or main area to, I don't know what you would say, to surveil on the people that live in the community for the most part. And then every once in a while, if there's a criminal, we can find that criminal. And then the question becomes, do these cameras actually make anyone safer or make the community safer? I don't know the answer, and I don't know how you would quantify it. I didn't believe that HOAs were going to be becoming, I didn't think that they were going to go down this path. I always thought that an HOA would, talk to the cities and the municipalities and advocate their position for safer communities by more policing. And so maybe that's a different discussion, but has policing broke down so badly that HOAs feel the need to have their own private security cameras? And then you could say, well, what's next? Private security forces in HOAs? Well, when I was in Detroit, there was a private security company that was in a few neighborhoods, and they would just drive. There were patrols. They would just drive up and down the streets. Now, I don't know the legality of it. I don't know if they helped. I don't know anything about it. I just know that they were there, and I suspect they've been there for a number of years. But those weren't cameras. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to bring to you today, the idea that the HOAs, now can lease cameras, and they either can choose to work with the municipalities or not. But I just want to know what you think. I don't have I don't feel comfortable with an HOA having security cameras, but I could be wrong. So that being said, let's end this with we're going to start some new things, hopefully next week. One of them is going to be is my neighbor crazy? I've got to get to work on that. So that'll be fun. And then if you have a question, if you have a comment, and if you have a neighbor that you think is crazy, if you have a weird neighbor story, weird real estate agent story, something that didn't set right with your real estate transaction, I think you should send me an email at media@deerwoodrealtystl.com, or you should give us a call at 314-274-3964. I'd love to hear what you guys think, and I'd love to produce something from the community. With that being said, I am going to go ahead and end this. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.